Hi, I'm Andrea.
Hey, y'all, this is Courtney, and welcome to the Human Design and Liberation Podcast.
This is a space where we explore how human design and liberation theology intersect with the past, present, and future,
with the intent of sharing the beauty and pain of the human experience to encourage you in your liberation journey.
Hi,
Hey, girl.
we're back.
We are back. So excited. Always so excited. You're going to get tired of hearing me say that because
I'm
I'm,
never tired
I'm
of hearing
always so excited to do this podcast. It's just true.
Well, your sacral's lit up by it, so I'm never tired of hearing that.
Ever.
Yay. Okay, so what we thought we'd talk about today is a little dive into strategy and authority.
Yes. Yes. We've been hearing from you, which we love. Hearing from the listeners, reading your comments. You all are sharing our stuff on social media, and it just absolutely warms our heart. We're just so excited that you're connecting with HDLiberation Podcast and connecting with us. It's just such a gift to be able to create in this way for the both of us. We were just reflecting recently on how meaningful this outlet is for us, being multidisciplinary, polymath, curious humans.
Yeah.
And looking at each other like we need a space for human design and liberation and history and, culture criticism and all these things. And our body said, well, then make it.
Yeah.
And so we get to now kind of demystify strategy and authority for you all in response to some comments and requests from you guys. And I think our story is a really good kind of jumping off point for what strategy and authority are like.
Yes. Yeah. And one of the things that is so profound in the human design journey is just how hard the simple things are. Like strategy and authority, it's when you read it, it's like, oh, like that sounds easy. And it's literally the hardest thing to do. So we're going to talk a little bit about why that is and how you can support yourself in the process. And if you want the breakdown of your strategy, your authority, I have an intro course called Better Human, and we're going to link to it in the show notes. So if what you're really craving is to hear the strategy and authority of all of the different types, then for sure, go check that out. There will be a discount code listed in the show notes for anybody who's listening. And that will give you a rundown of all of those. That's not what we're going to do here. What we're going to do here is we are going to talk about where it comes from, how it shows up, and give you some lived examples that Courtney and I have gone through, that we have been experiencing in our experiment to hopefully normalize the process, and give you just some kind of basic guidelines of this is what it's going to feel like. This is how you know you're doing it right, etc.
Yes, I love it. So I would love for you to kind of set us up. So what is strategy and authority? Like just like a 30,000 foot aerial kind of idea of what it is, and why is it so damn hard?
Why is it so damn hard? The reason it's so damn hard is conditioning. So we'll just lead in with that I mean, when you have been intentionally taught to abandon yourself your whole life, and then you start on a journey, which human design really catapults you into, of reclaiming your sovereignty, reclaiming what it means to be you, uniquely you, then something so simple as listening to the way that your being communicates to you is really hard to do.
It is.
So the 30,000 foot view level, so strategy and authority actually came later. When Ra started putting pen to paper on what he was being shown with the creation of human design, the early part was the centers and the intersection of the gates and where everything lies and how it all overlays. So, if you want to get a view of what that looks like, just Google Rave Mandala Human Design, and you will see the complexity of what all of that looked like. And so after that happened, these types started to become apparent. And that was when the patterns for those types started to reveal themselves. And from that, you got strategy. So strategy is based on your energy type, and it's based on the way that your energy is meant to work. And that's really what I go into in Better Human. For each energy type, your energy is meant to work very specific ways. And strategy is a way of navigating life, honoring the way your energy works. So for generators and MGs, you are here to be lit up by the things around you. You're here to be learning about yourself. You're here to bring forth that life force energy that you have consistent access to.
Yeah.
And I feel really strongly about this because when you look at the decline of our planet, it is very much aligned with the decline of generator satisfaction.
Yes.
The more you are overworked, the more that you are conditioned by the system, the worse you feel, the worse our planet feels. It's all interconnected. And so none of us benefits from a frustrated generator. Nobody wins.
Yeah. And to add to the weight of that and why it seems, I mean, we all have our impacts on the earth, but why generators and MGs particularly do is that we make up about, what is it?
It's like third? 74%.
Oh, yeah. 74%. Yeah. There are a lot of us. There are 8 generators to every manifestor. So there are a lot of generators in the world, in our population. And when you reflect on, the privilege we have here in the States, yet still living under the oppression of capitalism, but those countries who are kind of further down the food chain of capitalism, imagining the energetic impact of that dissatisfaction is important.
Yeah, it's very important. It's also important to recognize that every single differentiated generator has their own path to satisfaction. So, like, some generators are satisfied in capitalism.
True.
And that's okay. I think that the danger or the harm of capitalism is the homogenization. It's saying that this should be enough for everybody, and the extraction. So even though some generators are satisfied, they're still being extracted from, and that's eventually going to push them up against their not self.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. So, when you look at the strategy for the other energy types, for manifestors, the strategy is really just like let people get on board or get out of the way to inform. The strategy for projectors is really born out of our invasive aura, the fact that our aura goes so deeply into the other, it really has to be invited in. Otherwise, otherwise it's just another weapon. It's just causing harm, self-harm and harm to others. Giving unsolicited advice is not just rude, it's also harmful. Like I'm using energy that I need for other things to give someone advice that they don't even want. So you can think of strategy as a little bit of like a protective mechanism. And then with reflectors, it's about the lunar cycle. It's about the pattern that the cycle creates of connection within their centers to move wisdom through them. So that lunar cycle is really vital for reflectors.
Yeah.
So
Love
I
it.
think when we look at strategy as a protective mechanism versus as
a new set of rules.
as a rule, as another thing to comply with, right? Or as restrictive in any way. It's really not meant to be restrictive. When you look at it as a protective mechanism, then all of a sudden you can kind of relax into it. It's not about you not being yourself. It's about you having more understanding of what it means to be yourself while you're being yourself. And then
it's like that.
authority.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, it's kind of like opening up the conversation, to not just be kind of led by your intellect, your rationale, inherently and indefinitely, which is what we're all conditioned to do.
Yeah.
Primarily, but to really open up the conversation to your body. And as we've talked about in past episodes, just honoring its inherent wisdom.
And the wisdom and the interconnectedness between us, right? So the wisdom in knowing that everybody's energy works the way that it's meant to work, and how powerful it is to get curious about how someone else's energy works. And all of a sudden you go from needing to power through. So, I mean, the general conditioning, Mannies are conditioned to be generators. Generators are conditioned to be Mannies. Projectors are also conditioned to be generators. So the general conditioning has everybody in their not self. And as you start to follow your strategy, you notice how you following your strategy gives somebody else permission to follow theirs. And it just, even if they don't even know what human design is or have the language or the terminology, it just feels better. It feels better to be thought of as whatever makes you uniquely you.
Yes. Yeah. That was a whole, I mean, that's the whole crux of human design. Ra talks about, it's about communication. It's about being able to stand in the presence of another that you do not know, have no like prior intellectual connections with, or shared experience or anything, and be able to see them and respect them as a differentiated being, an expert in themselves, you the same, and be able to communicate honestly, and build and grow something without the interference of societal expectations, not self, anything that's kind of like been foisted upon you about how you should approach, respect, understand, judge the person in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you contrast that with how we've all been conditioned to go after it, like we've all been conditioned to try to be manifestors. And so unfortunately, like, because we are not manifestors, it comes off really clunky and uncoordinated and inauthentic.
Yeah.
And it's not inauthentic because it's not what we desire. Like we're trying to go after something we don't desire. It's inauthentic because our energy doesn't work that way. And so strategy just gives you an opportunity to kind of relax into, okay, this is the way my energy works. It doesn't mean I'm not meant to bring something into the world, because everybody born on this planet has a throat center. Everybody born on this planet is meant to express something, whether it's defined or undefined. It just gives you permission to be in whatever the natural expression of that is, versus feeling like the expression has to look like a manifester, which is how we're all conditioned to believe.
Yes. Yes. Love this. So I love to kind of talk about, we already talked about kind of how this podcast came about, but something that I would love to just kind of share a little bit deeper is like our journey to podcasting, from the perspective of our strategies.
Yeah.
And I'll just kick it off that I have a defined throat center.
You do.
A lot of definition.
Both do.
Yeah, we both do. And we are both very curious. And I also have a completely open head center. I have lots and lots of ideas, lots of questions. And I love sharing those questions with people and having deep conversations. I have a background in journalism, and so conversations is like the bedrock of journalism. And so I have wanted to podcast for a long time, and I've started a few over the years. I started my first one in 2018. It's called Mothering on the Margins. It might still be around. My incredible friend Tiffany Debham. And then after that, Black Oak Society, which is the creative collective I founded here in my hometown. We have a podcast called Boss Now Podcast. But these were responses. My friend Tiffany came to me and asked if we wanted to start one. I said, absolutely. Like, you're in a driver's seat. I just want to be a passenger. And same with the Boss Now podcast. But I wanted one for, to nerd out on all these random ass things that I'm like learning, and, and I could never, and the container was just not showing up. And again, I'm a generator, so my strategy is to respond, and my authority that helps me understand what to respond to is my sacral center. So I experience non-verbal utterances, urgings, deep feelings. It kind of like in my gut, when someone says like, go with your gut, like that's how I am wired to move through the world basically all the time. For some strategies are not necessarily for every single thing.
Yeah.
Generators happen to have a strategy that can be very involved in the mundane and the large. Yes.
You're the lucky ones.
Yes.
I'm not the only one with sacral envy.
Which is so funny because I'm like, no, I want something that's like sounds like words. I'm a writer, so I'm like, I need it to be words. And so it's the challenge though. It's the beautiful challenge of again, like moving from outer authority or rationale in back into my body and honoring it as the vehicle, as a vehicle that is supposed to guide me through this experience.
Which for those that are listening,
yeah,
we are going to do an episode on outer authority. So just sit tight.
Yes, it is coming. TBD.
Yeah.
But excuse me. So yeah, I just have this like I want a podcast to nerd out on. I want to just like not be confined to any one topic or one region or anything, and I just want to like nerd out. And then I meet, excuse me, and then I meet Andrea. And we totally hit it off. And we hit it off because we were just two nerds nerding out on the same things. And and Andrea mentioned a podcast, and I, as you heard in earlier episodes, just a Jack Russell Terrier, absolute yes, like full explosion of energy. I don't think I let her finish the sentence. It was it was so much excitement.
And the way that it came about for me was so interesting because it came from your invitation to do a live on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
So you invited me a couple of times to do lives. And the last time that you invited me to, it's kind of wild because we're going through the same thing right now, but it was to talk about the imminent government shutdown and
Yes.
the just ridiculousness in our Congress right now in the United States. And so we went live on Instagram, which we should maybe we resurface that and like add it as a bonus episode or something. That would
We should. That's always
fun. But yeah, it was just such a great conversation. Every time we would have a live, it was such a great conversation. And I was just kind of like basking in how successful it felt for me. And my spleen was like, podcast. And I was like, what? What? Because, yeah, it was not on my radar. Like, if you had asked me the day before, hey, you want to start a podcast? I'd have been like, no. Fortunately, I'm far enough in the experiment to know that when the spleen speaks, you listen.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I hear you. I don't know how I feel about this, but I hear you. And I think we did our live on a Friday, and that happened like on Saturday morning. And so then I just kind of like was just being with it. And then I think it was like Sunday afternoon. Something happened over the weekend and we were voxing, and it was like Sunday afternoon. And I was like, I don't know what this is about. My spleen said podcast. And that's when you were like, yes, I've been waiting to do a podcast. And I was like, okay. Your sacral said yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was a hell yeah.
But that's just an example of how our strategies were leading us together into an agreement correctly. So Ra talks about this a lot, about the importance of entering into commitments in your life correctly. And the way that you enter correctly is through your strategy and authority. And so when you have this in the beginning, the evidence is small. In the beginning, it's not something big like what we're describing. In the beginning, it's just like you get asked to go on a walk by your neighbor and you don't have a sacral response, so you say no. Or, you get asked to create something and you don't feel a sacral response. And so you don't create it right away. Maybe you don't have the option to not create it at all.
Right.
but you have the option to say, I don't feel a yes to this right now. So I'm going to do something else until I feel a yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want this to be so extreme, right? Because I do believe that life has to life.
Yeah.
And so not everybody has the luxury to just like, I'm going to put down everything until I respond. Like, that's not available.
So
But
true.
you can honor what you are responding to, and the things that you aren't responding to are maybe just like a not right now, like
Yes.
just because you don't feel like playing with your kids right now doesn't mean you're never going to play with them. It just
Right.
means like, I'm not responding to this right now. So here, let me set you up with something else and then see how you feel in an hour. Right.
Yeah.
Um, it's not all or nothing. I think we're so conditioned for the all or nothing.
The rigidity of, for me, it's rooted in um a lot of religious experience, like this
Mm,
idea of like sin and
mm,
sin consciousness,
mm-hmm.
like fear of making a mistake. And I wanted to also bring up something that we've talked about in past episodes around like the the not self is also a teacher.
Yeah.
And to um really the cool thing that I've found about strategy is the times when I don't listen are rich with information as well.
Yeah.
There's stuff to learn, and it's not, and
Yes.
it's not necessarily dire. It's not,
Mm.
I think like shedding, like you said, like that fatalist
Yeah.
approach to life in general, but human design specifically is really, really, really important. I
Yeah.
think like calling it an experiment is really such a perfect word because it is an experiment. And for me, that kind of makes it fun.
Yeah.
There's a situation where I was feeling very blah
Mm.
about doing something.
Mm.
And I knew in my sacral, I'm like, you got to cancel. You got to
Yeah.
cancel. And I'm like, but the people pleaser, I have an completely open solar plexus. I do not like confrontation. And I have ADHD. So there's that like kind of compounding effect.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, no, 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 no. I don't want to disappoint anyone. Let me just push through this. And I ended up being exposed to COVID
Mm.
that day. And so it's one of those things that I never could have known. And that's
Yeah.
the importance of strategy and authorities that your rationale can only compute what has been inputted into it.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And our bodies have an awareness that's not confined to our lived experience and exposure.
Yeah.
This is deep in our genetics. This is like ancestral wisdom in many
Yes.
ways that
Yes.
we're tapping into. And so to lean in to and have faith in that deep bodily, somatic ancestral wisdom that we have.
Yeah.
It's a journey, and it's also not a fatalist one. Like we make mistakes. Like you said, life is going to life,
Yeah.
and we'll choose to ignore sometimes, and we'll have those moments, and we'll learn, and we move on. But it's not a shameful thing. It's not
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's just real life.
Yeah. I think it's having a lot of grace for yourself in the process,
Hmm.
and not throwing in the towel when you mess it up, because you're going to mess it up.
Yeah,
Ra talks a lot about the third line and how the third line is here to mess it up so that they can share with others what not to do.
yeah,
And the truth is, even if your profile is not a third line, we all have third line in us. So Some of us more than others. Like, we're both 6 signs, so we have,
Yeah.
you know, we're going to live our whole life with a good 25-30% third line.
Yeah.
And even if, it's not as prominent, we all live out through the transits third line days every
Right.
6 days, so we're all getting exposed to this need to experience life. That's what the third line is all about. And so in your experiment, you need to experience life. You need to just collect experiences.
Yeah.
So just surrendering to that of like, I'm going to try, and I'm going to make note when I get it right, and I'm going to make note when I don't, so that I don't repeat that pattern. And also kind of allow myself to be vulnerable enough to where I might mess it up, but I'm going to give this new knowing a chance to show me, because
Yeah.
we are just really deeply conditioned to live in the ajna. We're just so,
Mm.
and that comes from thousands of years of the ajna being the focus. It's not, we
Right.
came by it honestly. It really was the focus until 1781. We talk about this
Yep.
almost every episode.
Yep.
But in 1781, that's when we went through a really big transition and went from being 7-centered to 9-centered. And prior to that, the ajna really was the focus. The ajna was the awareness center that allowed us to build civilizations, to organize. And so everything that we know is really kind of still centered on,
Yes.
mental knowing. And
Yes.
mental knowing is incredible. Like,
Yes.
it's not a bad thing. But it's not where we're meant to make decisions from.
Right.
And that's confusing. So recognizing that the mental knowing will follow. If you follow your strategy and authority, you will know the correct decision for you. And then your ajna will fill in the details later, and you'll get the
Right.
knowing. You'll understand why later. It might be the next day. It might be weeks from them. It might be months from then, right?
Right.
Like, the example you gave around getting exposed to COVID, like, you now have the mental awareness of what your strategy and authority was trying to tell you.
Right.
And you can't unknow that now. And so you're going to listen more closely when your sacral is not responding to something than you would if you didn't have that experience.
Exactly.
For me, I have a splenic awareness, and it speaks randomly sometimes, like, really, I mean, off the wall, like, weird knowings. And I can remember in high school having
Mm.
experiences where, like, I just knew not to do something or not to go somewhere or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just feel like finding that relationship with your authority, which we haven't really talked about yet. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But um, it just opens you up to the wisdom that's available innately, that
Yes. Yes.
you don't have to pack into your head. Like, that's a lot of responsibility. And our world is so complex. It always has been, but now, I mean, even just in the last 20 years, it's
Yeah.
gotten infinitely more complex. And so you can see where the brain is starting to kind of implode because it's trying to hold it all. And it was never
Yes.
designed to hold it all.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the information age, it's so funny. I was just thinking about this. It's like, what is the impact of an information age if you have no sense of truth?
Mm,
And I think now is a really, really good time to observe
yeah.
what it means to have information at your fingertips, but
Yeah.
no sense of truth or direction or any type of like grounding, mooring consciousness,
Yeah.
and this is not a morality conversation necessarily. It's more of, we are equipped with, this is what we're equipped with.
Yeah.
We are equipped with a strategy to connect us to the right information. It will reveal connection to the right information, to the right opportunities, experiences, etc. And so I think since, like this pre-1781 way was very much to just like accumulate as much information as possible. And that information in and of itself had the ability to direct us rightly.
Yeah.
And anybody who's studied the Enlightenment for like 5 minutes knows not true. Not correct. So this is that return, in many ways. It's kind of like a return, or it's kind of like a reintegration
Yeah.
of this bodily wisdom. It's like, yeah, you think you need it now,
Yeah.
you're certainly gonna need this when you can have anything, like when AI can give you any information that you want, and it can be about anything, and it can instruct you to do anything. So you have to have a sense of what's right for you in the time, you know what I mean? Like time and connection.
Yeah, it's that inner compass, right? You have to have that true north. And so we talk about this a lot as it relates to strategy and authority. The way that you know that you're in that true north is through your signature.
Yes.
And so trusting that as a generator, if you're following your strategy and authority, you're going to feel things more satisfying. You're going to feel more satisfied with your life. You're going to feel more satisfied afterwards. And knowing that satisfaction is not something that you can like fake, right? And it's not something that is externally given to you. That's the other hard part about strategy and authority, is that it is an internal process, and we are so programmed for external motivation.
Yes.
Right. And
I'm like, you're preaching right now. And I'm just like, oh, yes. You cannot fake satisfaction.
You really can't. You can't. And for generators specifically, that satisfaction is then fuel. It's fuel for more awareness. It's fuel for you to continue on that experiment. And there's nothing that can really replace it. Like once you get a taste of true satisfaction, it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter all of the external wealth or, beyond having your needs met. Obviously, we all need to have our needs met, but the satisfaction is what has to come first. Otherwise, the rest of it doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
So when we look at unwinding the externally motivated conditioning, strategy is a big, huge piece of it. And authority is also a big, huge piece of it. And authority is dictated by your definition. So authority it doesn't come from your energy type, although it is interrelated with your energy type, because energy type also comes from definition. And by definition, I mean which centers you have defined in your body graph.
Yes.
In your human design, which centers are defined. That is what determines which energy type you have, what your strategy is, and also what your authority is. And so authority, it's often described as the way you're designed to make decisions. I don't think it gives enough credit to the depth of authority. But authority is the way that you are designed to know what's right for you.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So strategy is how to approach your energy, how your energy works, and then authority is how to know within that approach what is correct for you.
Right.
And again, Better Human goes through all of the different authorities. And the best advice I can give around authority is to really experiment,
Yeah.
is really to just allow yourself to make a mistake, do the thing that you are afraid to do in honor of listening to it so that you get some experience with it. You have a sacral authority. I have a splenic authority.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and even though like many projectors have a splenic authority, it's also dictated by which channels you have, which
Yes.
gates you have, the way that it speaks to you. So, you are only going to be able to navigate it by giving yourself space to be in that intimate connection with the way it shows up for you.
Yeah. Which I love. I mean, this is something that I really, really love about human design because the approach to life that I was conditioned to follow is a
Mm-hmm.
very, very cautious, um, risk adverse,
Mm.
um, very, this tightrope type, the narrow road, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
That was the approach that I was shown. And so to find a modality that expands possibility, expands I almost feel like my wings are kind of like expanding. It's like, okay, I can try things like, because I have this inner compass now.
Yeah.
So I can try things and I can kind of like get close and then veer off, or I can get my feet wet and realize, oh, this is not the pond for me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And there's this it's not so much a fearlessness like I'm just going to run into a fire kind of,
Right.
like ridiculous. Like you're not going to just do random shit,
Yeah.
but to kind of allow your body, allow my satisfaction, and my sacral authority to respond and not be afraid, just
Yeah.
to allow myself to be curious, allow myself
Yeah.
to really just experience life as opposed to judging life, judging
Yeah.
everything from a distance because the distance is safe. I don't have to be like, the distance is not what's going to protect me or
Right.
not what I'm looking to protect me.
Right.
My body's my strategy and authority is meant to protect me.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is. And I think that it gives you such a tool, such a sharp tool to work with. By sharp, I mean precise.
Yeah.
Um, we're in such unstable times, and we really have been for a while. I mean,
Yes.
we really
In
have
all
been
honesty, yes.
for a long time. I mean, at least since 2008, if not
Hmm.
prior. Um, it's only getting more intense, more intense. And I did have somebody ask me about 2027 yesterday, so we're gonna have to do an episode on that too.
Yes, 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 yes. Which I'm very, yeah, it's going to be
We
really
have
cool.
like a whole running doc of episodes that we're gonna do. So if you have one that you are really wanting to hear, please message us, send us a
Please,
note,
yes.
and we will add it to the doc. Um, But regardless of if you know what 2027 is bringing or not, it's not like a doomsday thing. It is just
Yes.
a deepening into the evolution that we have already been in for the last 70 years.
Yeah.
Um, and 65 years ish. And I just want to say that strategy and authority gives you the opportunity to build inner stability. It gives you the opportunity to feel clear when your ajna, your brain, is not able to make sense of what's happening outside of you. And that experience is only going to get more frequent as we move forward.
Yes.
So having this inner compass is just a really powerful tool in your tool belt to navigate the uncertainty that we are all currently navigating and going to continue to navigate for a while.
Yes. True. I love this.
So that is why the simplest foundational pieces of human design are so hard to follow, in a nutshell.
Put a bow on that. Just put a bow right on that.
Yeah.
I love it. This was awesome.
I hope it was helpful for our listeners.
Yes. Please let us know. Always in comments. We're also on YouTube for any of you who have not seen. You can see our faces and connect with us. Yes, amazing. On YouTube at HDLiberation Podcast, and we'd love to see you over there as well. But yeah, share with your friends, chat with us. We love to chat, and we'll see you next time.
Yes.
Awesome week.
Thank you so much for tuning into HDLiberation Podcast. We hope you've gained valuable insights into human design and its role in building a life of peace, success, satisfaction, and wonder. If you've enjoyed this episode, please show your support by liking, following, and sharing our podcast on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. Your engagement helps us reach more people who can benefit from this wisdom. For exclusive content and to join our thriving community, consider becoming a Patreon member. Your support allows us to continue exploring the depths of human design and its potential for life and community transformation. Stay tuned for more fun, thoughtful, and impacting discussions. Together, we're unlocking the path to a more liberated and authentic life. Thank you for being part of HDLiberation Podcast.